host, Shelley Roberts. Myself, along with this series of fabulous speakers, are sharing what it means to be living powerfully from our own inner authority, which gives you wings to fly. I invite you to listen in on each of these conversations to get the most out of this event. It can be a game changer. One aha could literally change your life. In this free virtual series, you're learning how to connect to your inner authority and recognize and clear your inner glass ceilings so you can show up in your life in a bigger, more confident, and more empowered way. When you take it all in, you will walk away with the insights and action steps to powerfully create your own success and level up your life. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Holly Woods, purpose-driven business coach and consultant. Dr. Woods' PhD is a visionary who sees deeply into other souls. She activates and catalyzes what wants to come alive in people and guides them to manifest their dreams through practical strategies. Holly is one of the few veteran purpose activators on the planet, working with individuals, organizations, and businesses to align their lives and work with soul purpose. She brings 35 years of consulting and coaching in human and organizational development and 2 decades of experience building and scaling businesses and products that help entrepreneurs, visionaries, and innovators create impact. She helps clients uncover their nuanced purpose, gain capacities and mindset to attain their unreasonable goals, and align decisions, products, and systems around what matters most. Dr. Woods earned her PhD in human and organizational development and is certified as an integral master coach, purpose guide, professional mediator and facilitator, master energy practitioner, and is a stages of consciousness energy practitioner. She's also the author of the recently released #1 best-selling book, The Golden Thread, Where to Find Purpose in the Stages of Your Life. Hi, Dr. Holly. Welcome to the summit.
Thank you, Shelley. Delighted to be here with you.
I'm thrilled to have you.
Always a delight to be with you.
Congratulations on your book.
Thank you so much.
That's very, very recently released, correct?
It came out in the middle of the pandemic in April.
Jeez. Plan that.
Well, actually, I mean, I didn't plan it. I was guided to write the book last year, and I had no idea why. It wasn't a great year to write a book, but I listened to my instructions and wrote the book very quickly, and then scheduled the release in April, and and then the pandemic happens, and I'm like, what in the world? Why would you want it to be released in the pandemic? And then I realized, oh, it's because everybody is now searching for what they are here to do that has more meaning and purpose for their lives. And so it was gobbled up, like literally, I could not have planned it any better.
I love that. That is such a great example of being in flow and listening to your guidance.
Yeah. I mean, and when I do, and when, it always happens that way, that sort of magic occurs. Yeah. So when you're aligned, you're aligned.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the book.
Well, it is, so it's the synthesis of my life's work, and it talks about what is purpose and how does it show up in our lives, starting in childhood through the elder years, and looks at stages of human development or stages of consciousness as a frame to understand purpose. And what I mean by that is that over time we gain an awareness of things beyond ourselves. So we gain perspective on life. And so a child, an infant or a child really only has perspective of themselves, and that would be called first person perspective. And then they come to know their parents or their siblings. That would be second person perspective. And then they come to know their family and their peer, their playmates and such. And so we gain greater capacity over time if we're developing appropriately. And our purpose shifts over time based on what we're able to see, what we're aware of across the stages of our life. And so part of why we have such trouble actually finding and living our purpose is because it looks different in different stages of life, depending on what we're trying to accomplish at that stage. So that's why I wrote the book, is that I wanted to help people understand. I have a kitty um, joining me here. I wanted to help people understand how purpose shows up uniquely in these different stages so we could start mapping purpose across the lifetime and have more awareness and have a greater understanding of how we've actually always been on purpose, more or less, and that it is nudging and pulling us throughout our lives, but we just don't know it. And having a greater awareness of how it has shaped us can help us then live it more fully now and bring in our greatest contributions and gifts.
I love that. So it evolves over time, which makes it hard to recognize.
Right. Yeah. So there's two things that happen. I apologize about the cat.
Very cute.
Pandemic kitties. So because it shifts over time as we develop, it gets expressed. So our purpose stays the same across our lifetime, but how it looks in our lives shifts as we grow up, as we gain more perspective. And then so that's one of the reasons why we can't find it easily. And the second is that it also hides beneath our wounding that we're always trying to resolve. So sometimes our purpose actually looks like a wound or, a pain, a trauma that we're experiencing. And when we move to heal that trauma or resolve the pain that we're experiencing, the gift pops out of it. I mean, it's a phenomenal experience to have that occur. But we don't see purpose often because it's hidden behind those experiences that are indeed purposeful, but not necessarily feel good in our lives.
Well, absolutely, because we're focusing on the pain that we are in and just the desire to resolve it without looking underneath the surface of maybe there's not a lesson, but something to be, an opportunity or something to be gained from this experience. Because we're focused on, oh my God, it's painful. I want the pain to go away.
Right.
So profound.
Well, and what many people don't realize, and I talk about this in the book, is, I've come to see that life is actually a hall of mirrors. Everything we experience, everything is intended to give us, food for thought or a fodder for uncovering something that we need to understand about ourselves to help us grow and develop and evolve. And so when we use life in that way that everything is a gift and see it as a mirror of ourselves, it makes it easier to get through the hard times in life or the challenges, because we can see that thing that hurts and I'm not comfortable here and I don't really want to have this experience, but we can imagine okay, there's something here for me that's going to actually make my life better. And I'll be able to endure and thrive in a different way when I've gotten through this, which the more we accept and allow those things, the faster we go through. So when we're repressing and pushing it away and no, not me, it lasts a whole lot longer, and it's going to keep happening until you finally allow it to happen and have its, impact.
Yeah. The reason why it showed up in the first place.
Right. Otherwise we keep hitting our head on the wall. And believe me, it took me several decades to learn that I just kept repeating the same things over and over and over again. Life kept bringing me exactly what I needed. And until I finally paid attention and said, oh, there's something here that I've been ignoring. Let's deal with it. And then it stopped. It's just.
I love that somebody as intelligent and enlightened as you has the same challenges that the rest of us do.
No, I wrote the book because if I can do this, anybody can do this. My dad would call me one of the most stubborn people on the planet, and it's true. And I just kept doing the same, not knowing I was doing the same things over and over again, having the same traumatic experiences until I learned to stop and listen. My awareness had expanded enough to realize, okay, what is right here that I need to learn from that can help me move to the next place instead of having this experience again.
I love
Um,
that. I love that. But it's hard to see your own trees because you're in your own forest.
right, right.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's a shift in consciousness of kind of addressing the world and your circumstances as a mirror of your inner space or what's going on inside of you is
Yeah.
so powerful. And it's like the key of this entire summit. And the reason why I kicked it off was because if you shift your perspective and you look at your external surroundings and you say, well, I'm not getting my promotion. Well, is there a reason inside of you, a glass ceiling or something to break through,
Yeah.
or to realize or to embrace or to heal or, otherwise address that would hold you back? As soon as you break through that, boom, you're through.
It is. It's miraculous. We both have had those many experiences in life like that. And, the I think the benefit of reaching a place where I am accepting of things happening in my life. I mean, it's not like life is perfect. Um, and when things happen, I say, okay, that's fascinating. What is that showing me that I need to pay attention to? And I welcome that input from the universe, a next door neighbor or whomever, that's showing me something that I was ignoring. And when I pay attention to it and gain a greater awareness of it, I'm able to then, shift whatever's inside of me that lets me grow and expand.
Yeah, so the emotional triggers are alerting you or somebody to something that is going on inside of you. Like,
Mhm.
oh, why did that trigger me? Oh, it's that again.
Well, and the even more cool part is that at some point you stop having emotional triggers. You realize there's no reason to get upset about this at all. It's just another thing that's showing up for me on my behalf to let me grow and become a more whole human being.
Yeah.
So I don't actually have emotional triggers anymore. I mean, really, truly, it's ridiculous. The level of joy and openness that emerges when you do this long enough that, like, almost anything can happen. Like, oh, that's fascinating. Look at that. Wonder what's here for me.
You start to see the blessings or in the situation, and you're like, oh, there's something in this for me. Okay, cool. What
Yeah.
is it?
Yeah.
Go a little deeper and explore what's underlying this. That's
Yeah.
fun. I mean, I think you've done a lot of clearing of past issues and traumas, obviously, that have opened those doors for you. If there's somebody who hasn't had that opportunity for that depth of awareness, what would you recommend or suggest for them?
Well, early stages of self-inquiry are really significant. So when you are having, reactions to things in life, identifying one of the things that I often work with people who are in that stage of really coming to a greater awareness of how they are responding or reacting to life is connecting the emotion to where it shows up in your body and having the experience of how does my body hold that emotion and what is the emotion, where is it in the body. I did a lot of training with Peter Levine and somatic experiencing, and it's really important to begin to identify how we hold trauma in different parts of our physical anatomy and our subtle anatomy, so that we can notice it, be aware of it, allow it, and then actually literally watch it dissipate. That's some of the very first steps in this process of coming to an acceptance and allowance is how does it, because it starts with, something out there, and it's like an energetic, and then it goes into your gut brain, and then it turns into an emotion that leads to your brain translating it or interpreting it, and then it goes into your body. And so this cycle of reactions that occur, and if we can begin to notice in our body even and become aware of our emotions and claim them, like, oh, when that happens, this is what I do. We can begin to make choices about either stopping that thing happening if we have control of it. We can have an awareness of the emotion, and we can have an awareness of where it is in our body and begin to adjust that cycle. So dissecting the cycle that occurs actually creates this opportunity to repattern our reactions to life.
That's powerful. That's super powerful. So if we're not able to address things that get stuck in our body, does that, I've heard that turns into like dis-ease or other maladies?
Yeah, it does. I mean, that's, really important. At one point in my own life, because I wasn't good at this, I had a number of disorders related to an autoimmune disease. And an internist told me that I would be living with these disorders, 12 disorders, the rest of my life, and I needed to go to a pain clinic.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa, that actually doesn't work for me. I'm either going to leave the planet because I'm not going to live that way, or I'm going to figure out another way. And that really intensified for me the decision that I need to figure out this stuff more fully than I had, and figure out some new strategies that were well beyond what I could get from Western medicine or, more traditional psychotherapeutic practices, which I'd been doing for a while. So I began learning lots of modalities and other means of resolving this stuff. And, the work with somatic experiencing was just one of the many things that I did to resolve it. But
and it worked.
Yeah, it worked. And so looking in your body, where is it? I use a body map. One of the practices I do with people early in process, if they've got stuck trauma, is to identify where in your body does this trauma occur when it occurs, and name the emotion, so you're looking at your body throughout the day or the week and identifying what shows up. And it's significant that when you really pay attention, like focus on a particular, if you've got a constriction in your throat, something just happened, you got yelled at, you want to speak back, but all of a sudden your throat constricts, not in the circumstance, but later feel the constriction and notice it, and just, lovingly attend to the constriction. Just be with it, honor it, hold it, notice, realize you're in a safe environment, there's nothing wrong in the moment, and then watch it dissipate. The energy actually will move out of the throat and deconstrict. And that is the natural process of trauma relief.
Wow.
Emotions only last 90 seconds. So we hold on to things in a way that is really dysfunctional for our bodies and our lives. And that leads to then recurring, because then if you hold it, if it stays there, you're going to invite it in again. Remember, because we're a mirror. So if that's what I'm experiencing, I'm going to have it happen again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the goal is to move it out.
Well, you have to be aware of it first and acknowledge that's happening, and then certainly take those next steps for sure. So in terms of childhood trauma for things that were prolonged, is it the same process? It shows up the same way?
Well, it does. Generally it does show up as disease of some sort, either, psychological or physical. And it is good to have a practitioner then to support you to assist in the release of those kinds of traumas. And a lot of the trauma we experience these days is both intergenerational. We host the traumas of our ancestors in our own DNA and our experience. And many of us also host the collective trauma. This last few months has been pretty challenging for most of us, and it probably created a lot of, at least frustration, if not fear and trepidation, because so much of this causes us to relive other traumas in our life. So
Yeah, I think working through it and recognizing we're not alone in it. Sometimes it's just a very lonely experience when you're going through something, but this definitely has been a collective experience. Onto a happier subject. What happens? Sorry, that was an abrupt
You went
segue.
down a trauma hole. It's all right.
It's important to release
Yeah.
those things, though, so that when you step into a more conscious expression of your life purpose, when you're from the perspective of success and showing up bigger and more powerfully or more confidently or more impactfully, whatever your goals and objectives are, your unreasonable goals, whatever those are, having that awareness is key.
Yeah.
Stepping into your life purpose and knowing that thread, is that also key?
Well, it is. And I also want to just suggest, and I was teasing, we went down a trauma hole, but truly, about a third to a half of the work I do with people is related to releasing the trauma, because you actually can't get to your purpose without doing that. It's relatively impossible to fully identify, understand, grok, and live your purpose if you're still hanging on to all that unintegrated trauma and wounding that exists in all of us. So it is really powerful to know and claim your true soul purpose as a means of living more fully, coming home to yourself. Most of my clients talk about when we uncover some facet of their purpose, they talk about, oh my God, I actually feel home. And I believe that is because, for the first time in our lives, we begin to understand who, I've got energy moving every time I talk about this. We begin to understand who we really are in this human experience on this planet, and feel like we actually now belong, because I get it so deeply. It's not, something that I can do for a job or a career or build a product. It's like, oh, I get me, I get who I am and what I'm about. And now I feel confident and courageous to be myself. And from that, then you can truly go live into that version of you that, both is generating meaning because you're being yourself, aligned with your soul and what you came here to do, but it's also offering your greatest contribution, your gift.
Yeah.
Because that's why we came. Purpose is about, making our greatest contribution on the planet. It's not about, just being my happy, satisfied, fulfilled self and yay for me. It's about making that contribution on the planet and tending to the others and the planet itself.
Yeah, being part of
a kind way.
Yeah, being part of that broader fabric of life.
Yeah.
But knowing that you are that part of that broader fabric of life, and feeling that connection both within but also outside of you.
Yeah, and that's an important concept, Shelley, that nobody else came to the planet to do what you came to do, or I came to do. That we each have this very nuanced, one of a kind expression to make through our purpose. So if I'm not doing that, the fabric is missing my thread. And when you think about how few people are actually really living purposeful lives these days, fortunately it's increasing, but given so few people have been living their best life, fully themselves, no wonder our world is frayed. The tapestry is missing all those threads. And so it's very holy, and not holy in the good sense, but it's got lots of holes, and it's very tattered. And so it's not only for our own benefit to live that life, but it's necessary, it's required, it's both our role and our responsibility to live a life of greater meaning and greater contribution.
So shifting away from, we think of roles and responsibilities, we think of being constrained within the confines of a role, and responsibility is heavy and burdensome. So living life in a soul purpose, is light, and it's joyful, and
Yeah.
it's ease and grace. And, you're better able to navigate things that pop up as difficult or challenging, or, if you're in that other place, it would be more difficult to do. So I want to emphasize, how does you have to take a lifetime to get to that place, or can it be accelerated?
No, and honestly, that's why I wrote the book, because this occurred for me, I don't know, a number of years ago. I've been doing this for so long that I started seeing these patterns as I'm helping people deconstruct, and understand their lives. I began seeing this pattern of the golden thread, and I actually really did see the golden thread, like, oh my God, that's a thread.
Cool.
I see a lot of things that, people can't see as being clairvoyant, but so it shows up in childhood, and we'll do an exercise here in a bit, but it shows up in childhood in particular ways, and it shows up in, so toddlerhood, childhood, adolescence, early adulthood, it shows up literally our entire life. We just don't know what to look for.
Yeah.
And we grow up in contexts, families, and, communities that don't necessarily pay attention to the things that we're giving people clue. When we're children, we're giving our parents and others clues about what really matters to us. And often no one's paying attention to
we
that.
know what to listen to.
Because we want this for our children, not that funny, weird thing that you're doing that annoys me. Oddly, the funny, weird thing that kids do that's different and unique is often some facet of purpose. It's powerful how frequently that happens. But it's not acceptable, and I don't really want you to do that because it's so different. And we don't do that here, or for whatever reason, our families are very constrained in their, we raise children and believe there is a particular way that we should grow up, and, not to knock parents. I'm a parent of children, adult children. So it's just paying more attention to what is emerging at each stage of life, and realizing, oh, this might be a clue, that I could follow and find that thread.
So for parents, is there a way to recognize those signs? Maybe more cognizant, front and center wise?
Yeah, there is. And to be honest, if you haven't gotten the book, chapter 4 describes the first tier in human development, the concrete tier. And it is literally from birth to, typically adolescence, early adulthood, and it describes how to find those things. But they're the innate curiosities and passions and a child's way of being in the world that evoke some awareness of, oh, that's important. So, I didn't know this until I didn't really get all this until after I'd raised 4 kids, 2 my own and 2 stepkids, and had this perfect clinical trial going, 2 of my own children and 2 of my now ex-husband's children, raised in different environments, but now in the same environment and theoretically getting the same stuff. And it was so fascinating to watch, because I had really been paying attention to them as children. Like, well, what do they like? What are they fascinated by? What do they like to read? What do they ask about? What do they watch? When movies happen, what do they notice? What do their friends do? What do they talk about? Talk incessantly. How children talk incessantly about things, bugs or... And it's not necessarily the thing. It's often got a bigger, context around it. Can I tell a quick story?
Yeah,
very
absolutely.
Quick. So my oldest daughter, who's now 25, when she was a child, she became obsessed with Elizabethan history.
With
Like,
the what?
like Queen Elizabeth. Like,
Oh,
she wanted to know about Queen Elizabeth and the courts and the suitors and the, you know, the customs and the dresses and the everything. And I'm like, I don't get it, but you're enjoying it, so great, we'll follow that thread. And so I bought books, we bought movies, we, you know, studied. And then she turned to European dynasties, like, okay, whatever, she's a history buff. And then she got to Japanese, and like she started studying governments and monarchs and political systems internationally. This was all before middle school. And then, you know, it just expanded. Then she became a speech captain and really into sort of the political scene. Well, she now is an activist that does political advocacy. And, you know, I would never have guessed, I couldn't have guessed all that in her childhood, that that's where it was going to go. But by allowing her to have whatever her expression was, I didn't make her feel bad for wanting to, you know, study those things. I just encouraged it. Like, you want to read, you want to watch this, you want to talk about, you want to learn more. Sure, let's go do that. And anyway, so that's
how it manifests in later in life as you follow your passions and interests. And that's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. I love that. So you had mentioned an exercise. I think we called it a story map. You want to tell us about it?
Well, and so it's related to what we just talked about. So what I'd love for you to do, if you're in a place where you can, is to, you know, if you have a piece of paper or a pencil or your phone, and just take a minute and think about, what were those innate curiosities or passions or obsessions or things that made you excited and feel alive as a child. And some people actually can't remember very much childhood, and often that's due to wounding. And I usually am able to extract it from them. But as far back as you can remember, and you do this too, Shelley, what is it you recall about what inspired you? You know, you wouldn't use that word as a child, but what was the curiosity? What was puzzling that you spent hours learning about or thinking about or talking about? And there may have been several things. And then as you became an older child or a young adolescent, how did that evolve, or how did it morph into something different? And how did that get expressed at that stage? So you might have, you know, if you had a book report assignment, you might have written a book report about a book that you loved, or, you know, you might have watched particular shows or movies, or you might have talked to your friends about these things, or your parents, or collected things that mattered to you. And then in young adulthood, how does that show up in the things you study, and the places you go, and the experiences you have, and you know, the extracurricular things you did, or the you know, the hobbies. And then in adulthood, often by that time we've lost it, you know, for many of us, late adolescence, it starts, all of these curiosities start going the way of, oh, I got to do this because that's what everybody expects of me. So generally the early childhood, late childhood, early adolescence are the best times we can grab on to some of that stuff, because it was still pretty innate in us. We still have a lot of alive curiosity. So as you conjure up these memories, and you might want to do this the rest of today or tomorrow, what do you recall about how you felt? You know, what did that feel like in your body, energetically, emotionally? What do you recall about how you were able to express that in your life? And perhaps, how does that still exist in some way that's either fully expressed or not, and maybe repressed, that potentially you could call back in and create some aliveness. Now, those are just clues about purpose and your golden thread, but they're important clues. They're really significant ways that we can get back in touch with who it is we are and what it is we came to share with the world, that both gives us meaning and joy and creates that flow you talked about, but also begin to make our greatest contribution.
Yeah, definitely living that higher, more purposeful, joyful, impactful life. What a powerful way to define success in living.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. So I could talk to you about this all day, but I need to shift gears and have you introduce your free gift to the audience, which is the introductory chapter of your best-selling book, The Golden Thread.
Yeah, and I haven't been doing this, but I just felt it's important to folks who are participating in the summit that you get a glimpse, if you haven't heard of the book or read it, that the first chapter is a really great overview of some of what we've been talking about, why purpose matters and why you may not have been able to find your purpose and how it led you here perfectly. Everything in your life has been perfect, and it helps you to make sense of your life and why you do what you do in the world, and then 3 steps to living on purpose, and what the golden thread is, which we've talked a little bit about. So I'm offering that free introductory chapter.
I love that.
And I also want to say, when you sign up for and receive this download, you'll also get access. I'm in the process of creating it now, but I'm creating a masterclass that will be free, and it's 5 steps to manifest your purpose-driven life. And I'll have videos and exercises and a live Q&A session. So
Yay,
I have it available today, but in a couple of weeks it will be available. So you'll get that.
Awesome. We'll definitely include it for our audience on the as a link on the Summit replay page, so that when it is available, we'll make it available. Thank you for that. That's awesome. And I know that our audience is going to want to definitely get their hands on your book so that they can pull their own thread and find out what that joy and purpose is that they feel like they might be missing.
Great. Thank you, Shelley.
So thank you very much. I know our audience will want to go check that all out. We'll post those links on the Summit speaker replay page, and also the free gifts will be available on the Summit announcement email for on the day that your interview is released. So Holly, thank you for joining us. It was amazing to have you on the Summit.
Thank you, Shelley. This was delightful. Very much fun. And you got to see the kitties.
Pandemic kitties. So to our community, be sure to look for our next interviews in your inbox. You have access for a full 7 days after each interview is released, so be sure to visit the replay page often. The link can be found in your daily Summit interview announcement email as well as mentioned. And we'll see you again soon in our next episode. Until then, shine your light into the world powerfully and in your highest expression. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you, Holly.
Thank you, Shelley. This was fun.